Dealing in drugs is often the province of the double cross, the sting and the double deal.
A Canvey schoolteacher has told how she spotted the victims of a triple gangland slaying, tailing a mystery car on the night they died. Rebecca Carter, who was a surprise witness in the defence case of Michael Steele and Jack Wilmes, said she noticed the trio at the Retterdon Turnpike roundabout, less than a mile from where their blood-splattered bodies were found inside a Range Rover. The hushed Old Bailey courtroom heard the Geography Department head was driving to a Malden home on the day of their deaths, December 6, 1995, when she was forced to stop at traffic lights. She told the court, "A Range Rover was in the next lane and I could see 3 men inside it. I couldn't see the driver perfectly clearly, but there was someone in the front passenger seat." Graham Parkins, QC, defending Steele, asked her, "What did you notice about the build of these two men?" She replied, "They were very large, very muscular big men." Miss Carter also revealed there was a passenger in the back, leaning forward between the front two seats. She said, "He struck me as being massive basically." The dead men were drug dealers Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe. All three were bodybuilders, and Tate, who was found in the back seat, used steroids. Steele and Wilmes have denied gunning them down over disagreement over a cannabis deal. Supergrass Darren Nichols, a protected witness, has claimed that he picked them up from Workhouse Lane, near White House Farm, at 7 p.m. on the night of the killings in a beige Volkswagen Passat. But Miss Carter, who now lives in Benfleet, told the Old Bailey jury that she spotted the Range Rover at 5:45 p.m. She was interviewed by police days later and was able to identify photos of Tate and Tucker. She added, "There was a white Ford Sierra, I believe it was a C-Reg, which the Range Rover was trying to keep up with. I got the impression that they were together." Although she could not see the Sierra's driver, she described the front passenger as a big man who filled the seat. As they reached White House Farm, Miss Carter said the Sierra braked suddenly and indicated it was turning right. The Range Rover did the same. During cross-examination, Miss Carter was asked how sure she was of the identity of the men in the Range Rover. She responded, "The man in the back, I'm definitely sure of." Ex-boss's praise for murder suspect. A suspect accused of a triple gangland killing was given a glowing reference from his former employer at the Old Bailey yesterday. Miss Scarlett Edgar told the jury 36-year-old Jack Wilmes was an honest person who she could trust with anything. The court heard Miss Edgar, who owns G&T Commercials at Barham, praised Wilmes. She told the jury Jack Wilmes was employed by me as a mechanic. "There is nothing I can say bad about him. There was one time when I was on holiday and Jack was in possession of a checkbook I'd signed. They were all blank. There isn't anyone else I could do that with." An emotional Miss Edgar continued, "People think that because Jack is big and not good at reading and writing, he's some kind of oaf. But he isn't." She added that Wilmes was a great lover of water sports and his family were known in the area for the love of water. Miss Edgar said a radio receiver was found in Wilmes' car, was used for his water sports and nothing else. The court also had a written statement from the owner of a hotel in which Tate, Rolfe and Donna Garwood and two pals stayed and visited Ostend in November 1995. Maria Vanderway from the Burlington Hotel remembered the visit by the group, but commented that she was not at all happy with their behaviour. During the group's stay at the hotel, Rolfe and Tate became very drunk, and a smoke detector was smashed, setting off fire alarms at the premises. Tate and the rest of the group then left the following morning, allegedly taking back to the United Kingdom thousands of pounds in cash, refunded after a cannabis deal backfired. Wilmes and Steele deny a charge of conspiracy to import cannabis. The case continues. Frost and snow put trio in the clear. A lawyer has poured cold water over the evidence of Supergrass Darren Nichols in the triple Retterdon murder trial. Graham Parkins QC said snow and ice were not found on the Range Rover containing the victims' bullet-ridden bodies, even though it allegedly stood in wintry conditions. A farm worker and his friend made the grisly discovery in snow-covered Workhouse Lane the next day, and the police visited the site at 8:20 a.m. Mr. Parkins added, if Nichols' evidence was to be believed, the Range Rover would have been there for more than 13 hours. However, Mr. Parkins believed the vehicle must have been driven there after midnight, which would account for the lack of snow and ice. He said it was a curious feature of the case that the vehicle was frost-free, as there had been snow that night. The barrister criticised police and Home Office pathologists for not determining the exact time of death and not checking weather conditions with the Met Office. Mr. Parkins, who represents Mr. Steele, told the jury, "No one ever felt to see if the victim's bonnet was warm. The whole thing is a mystery which needs to be examined. You may think this is an incompetent start to a major murder inquiry." He said no clues at the scene linked Steele or co-defendant Jack Worms with being there. Mr. Parkins said a DNA test proved negative. There was no fingerprints or footprints which would point to the two men. There was no tyre marks showing where the alleged getaway car, an old VW Passat, might have been parked. There was not even signs of leaking car oil on the track or nearby road, he added. Mr. Parkins described the prosecution case containing Steele and Worms with the murders as pure speculation. He said the cold-blooded killings bore all the hallmarks of professional hitmen, not the defendants in the dock. The trial continues. Supergrass lied in court. Supergrass Darren Nichols lied and lied over the Rettendon triple murders, a lawyer told the Old Bailey. Nichols claimed he was the getaway driver after the callous killings, but became a police informer to spare himself a murder charge, said defence counsellor Edward Rees. Mr. Rees said Nichols wanted to get his own back on two men he had fallen out with, Jack Worms and Michael Steele. He also had it in for Peter Corey, who he claimed was heavily involved in drug smuggling operations, added Mr. Rees. The barrister stressed that Nichols himself was into drugs and was a persistent liar, steeped in criminal activity. At the time, the 32-year-old police informer was vindictive and clever with it, said Mr. Rees, the third defence lawyer in the trial to discredit Nichols, the prosecution's chief witness. Mr. Rees, who represents Corey, went on, "Nichols is dishonest by nature. His attitude is you are all corrupt, so do not have a go at me because I'm trying to make a living." Then Mr. Rees asked the jury, "How many allowances are you giving Nichols? You must have considerable unease about his evidence." Earlier in the trial, Nichols, an electrician from Braintree, told her he met Worms and Steele in prison. They kept in touch afterwards, and Nichols actually worked for Steele, who was rebuilding a bungalow. Nichols maintained he was asked to act as a getaway driver for his prison pals, while they had a rendezvous in a quiet Rettendon farm track with 3 drug barons. He said he waited at the start of the track for the two men to return, thinking they'd fixed a lucrative cannabis deal. It was only later, he alleged, that he realised they had shot the drug dealers. Nichols, who was never charged with the murders, has pleaded guilty to drug offences and is awaiting sentence. The case was adjourned until after Christmas. The jury will return on January the 5th when the judge is expected to sum up the trial, now in its 16th week.